Gonzalez here, and I think Henry's voting as well. But I'll turn it over to you, Tony, for any remarks you want to make, and then Henry, and then we'll answer or dodge a few questions.
Great. Thank you, Senator. And I want to first start off and thank you for your leadership on this topic. Right now, the country is divided in many ways, but this is an area that not one person, not one party can solve alone. We all have to come together, and this bill is what at the heart of does that. Adding 4 regional processing centers is critical to us solving this issue. Putting Border Patrol agents, taking Border Patrol agents out of the processing business and putting them back in the national security business is what this bill gets to the heart of. Also, what I think is important, look, I'm a father of 6. I visited, as all of us, as Senator Cornyn and Congressman Cuellar, we visited many of these facilities. And it is heartbreaking to see the sheer number of children that are having to go through here. What worries me is once they leave these facilities, what happens to them then? Are they going to be a forgotten generation of children? We don't want to see that happening. We want to see, the follow-up that takes place to ensure, once they get to their destination, their sponsor's destination, that it is a safe home. That is important to us. The other part of it, before I turn it over to Congressman Cuellar, is adding judges on the border. That's key. That's critical to it all. Look, while many of the cases may not meet the criteria for fear, there are some that do. And I think it's important that we have a process that is timely, that their claims are they're given every opportunity to have these claims. And part of that is having more judges. At least 150 additional judges is critical to solving this problem. I thank you again, Senator, for your leadership on this. And I thank my good friend, Henry Cuellar, for always being helpful and willing to have a conversation to tackle this. Because the bottom line, my district is 820 miles of border. Henry's district is border, as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Congressman Cuellar.
Tony, if I can say before Henry speaks, Henry, I think people might want to know that this builds on legislation that you and I introduced in 2017 called the Humane Act. And the reason why I think it was appropriately named is the status quo is dangerous and anything but humane for these very vulnerable migrants. So Henry, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Senator. And again, I also want to thank you for your leadership. You've been working on this. Both of us have been working on this for a while, and this is not our first rodeo. We saw the surge in 2014, 2019, and here we are in 2021. So I want to thank you for being very proactive. I know that one of your colleagues, a Democratic colleague, Krista Sinema, is also part of this bill also. So I also want to thank her also. On the House side, Tony, it's a pleasure. You and I will be working together on the appropriations, and I want to thank you for your work and the good work that we're going to be doing together in a bipartisan way with our leader, Senator John Cornyn. Look, we got to have a sense of urgency. We can either just wait and just let the numbers just keep coming, or do we get a sense of urgency and do something? We got to try something. We cannot just wait here and just look at what I call the input and the output. I mean, the input is just simply the numbers are coming in very large numbers, in such large numbers that, as you know, even some of the folks are not even being put in the immigration system. They're not given notice to appear. I think as of a couple of days ago, over 15,300 people had just been released on what I call the honor system. And that honor system is just basically what we call it Form 385, where there are ads that in 60 days they find the closest ICE office and report to them, but they're not part of the system itself. And that shows you how overworked our Border Patrol agents are being. So we have this input, people coming in large numbers, and then the output part of it, can we move them faster? Because Border Patrol facilities are not a place to hold, especially the young kids. Sometimes, as you know, they're supposed to be there 72 hours, but they've been there 10 or even more than 20 days at a time. So you're looking at them coming in and staying there for longer. So the output, how we work with HSS and of course the Office of Refugee Resettlement is going to be important. The bottom line is we're trying something. And I think the concepts that we have is well thought of. We got some concepts that are common sense, and we want to give it a try. And we hope that the administration will work with us, and both Democrats and Republicans will support this, because just keeping the status quo is not working. And that's not the way we ought to be. We cannot be reactive. We got to be proactive. And this is what this legislation is all about. So again, Senator Cornyn, thank you for your leadership. And Tony, also, it's a pleasure working with you. And again, thank you for all of y'all for being present today.
Well, let me just emphasize a point that Henry made. It's easy to say, well, this isn't everything I want, especially in a very difficult and complex area like immigration. And of course, we've been through the immigration battles here on Capitol Hill a long time. But it's not enough to criticize what other people have proposed to try to solve a problem. If you've got a better idea, come forward with one. But this is truly unique, at least in these very polarized and contentious times, where you have a bipartisan, bicameral proposal, and it's based on very practical advice that's been given to us by Border Patrol and Health and Human Services, the non-governmental organizations that try to help these folks at the border. And so if somebody's got a better idea, we're all ears. But in the meantime, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work.
Well said.
Thank you all. With that, we'll open it up to some questions. And let's start here with KRGV's Santiago Saicedo. Go ahead, Santiago, ask your question.
Hey, good morning. Can everyone see me, hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Something that, we're talking about bipartisan solutions to the migrant surge. And this reminds me of the visit on April 12th, around that date. Vicente Gonzalez was here. I know you mentioned, of course, processing centers, of course, here in the US, but what about processing centers near Guatemala or on the border, southern border of Mexico? Is that included? And also, just for viewers, they've heard now, like I said, this is the second type of bipartisan solution. How do you kind of explain this one compared to that one? Are these the two same things? What's the difference?
Well, I'll start by just saying, Santiago, that this is a beginning, not the end. We're hopeful that these discussions on immigration and border security can continue. Matter of fact, there was some bipartisan meetings last night. Senator Dick Durbin, the Democratic Majority Whip, convened a hearing, a bipartisan meeting of senators, and we've agreed to continue to try to build on the things that we can agree on. But until we get this under a little bit better control, I think it's going to be very difficult for us to move other substantive immigration legislation. I'm not saying the problem has to go away, but we certainly have to manage it better. And I think Henry's right. The administration, when they realize that what they're doing now is not working, we'd like to give them a soft place to land. And this is, as I said, the only bicameral bipartisan bill. And so we're hoping that this will provoke a desire on the part of the administration to work with us. But this is just the beginning.
Yes, Santiago, I'll chime in and just say what makes this different is it's not only bipartisan, but it's bicameral. We have to get it through the House and the Senate. Otherwise, it's kind of dead on the vine. So this is the first bill that does both of that.
And Santiago, I was there with you're referring to the problem solvers. I was with them on Sunday and wasn't there on Monday. And I know what you're talking about. Look, the way we address this issue is I call it in three parts. One part is what do you do outside the U.S., which is basically in the what we call the foreign operation aspect of it. What do we do with that? As you know, Mexico is now looking at setting up children's shelters up there in the southern part. So they're already looking, and we've been in communication with the Mexicans as to the work that they're doing. So what we do over there, the foreign aid, and it's not only the money, we also got to deal with them, work with them. They want to, they want investment, foreign investments. They want jobs down there. So that's the other aspects before we get in. The second part is, what do we do in the border? And that's one part of this bill. But the third part is, once they're out of the border and they're in the ORR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which this bill deals with also, that's the third part. So this bill basically deals with number 2 and number 3. The third part, of course, is something that the senator and I and Tony and others will be working on the appropriations as to what sort of assistance we provide, what sort of metrics we send, because we have given them $3.6 billion. Oh, I'll take it back. We have appropriated $3.6 billion since 2016, but some of that is still stuck in the State Department and USAID for reasons that I can explain. But those are the things that we have to look at. So this deals, let's put it in 3 buckets. This deals with 2 buckets out of the 3 buckets. And this is the very important part that we're dealing with here in the US.
Thank you all. Next, we have a question from Morgan Burrell from KABB WAI in San Antonio. Morgan, go ahead.
Hey there. Good morning. At last check, there were about 1,931 unaccompanied migrant children here in care at the San Antonio Emergency Intake Site. And on Tuesday, HHS told us they only had 13 total reunifications at the site since it opened on March 29th. If this bill is passed, how quickly do you anticipate we'll see results here?
Well, obviously, this proposes a new process, which, as Tony explained, that would allow the Border Patrol to stay on the front line to repel illegal immigration and illegal drugs coming into the United States, and then transfer these migrants to a place where they can be processed and given an opportunity to present their claims of credible fear for asylum purposes, and hopefully an immigration judge at some point. So the problem with the current situation is the Border Patrol's told me they can't build enough capacity to keep ahead of this problem. And obviously with the allegations that occurred at the Joe Freeman Coliseum of sexual assault, unsupervised teenage boys, which is very serious. I think our standard always has to be what's in the best interest of these children. And but it is not in the best interest of these children to attract them to make that long and perilous and maybe deadly journey from their country of origin, and then come to the United States only to find that they don't have legitimate claims for asylum under US law. But those who do, we want to make sure they have that opportunity to present that claim quickly. So our hope is that we will reduce the need for those sort of detention facilities, which seem to pop up overnight without much consultation and communication with local leaders. It seems to be a fairly consistent habit of Health and Human Services, but we understand everybody's trying to do their best and being overwhelmed.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Justin Cree with KFOX and CBS 4 in El Paso. Justin, go ahead. All right, we'll come back to Justin. How about, is James Paluffa with Univision San Antonio on the call?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you, James.
Yes, so thank you for your time. Let me start recording on my end here because I'm not able to record through your link. I wanted to ask Mr. Cuellar en español if we could give us the gist of the proposal.
Sí, cómo no. Lo que queremos hacer es tener un proceso donde podemos tener justicia para las personas que están entrando, porque ahorita se tarda mucho tener una audiencia frente de un juez. Por eso queremos poner 150 jueces nuevos. Por eso queremos tener un proceso donde pueden tener su día a frente de un juez. Y donde no van a estar esperando por mucho tiempo en los centros del Border Patrol, porque no deben de estar ahí más de 3 días. Y lo que queremos hacer es, estamos con una propuesta, porque ahorita sabemos que hay un problema, pero nosotros, demócratas, republicanos, el senador Cornyn, Tony González, Krista Sinema, demócrata, senador de Arizona, tenemos una propuesta y si hay mejores ideas allá, pues